Get started. Hello, everyone. My name is JQ Hanna. I'm the Interim Executive Director of Food Co-op Initiative, and thank you for joining us for FCI Live 2025. This is our second week in the series. We're so glad to have you here, and I have been greatly looking forward to our presentation today. I've seen Gabby present on other topics. I've had incredible conversations with Gabby. Gabby is well known throughout the food co-op movement, and this is her session on dissecting the definition of healthy, what we mean by it, and the impacts of the use of that term when we haven't really examined what it means. So we're going to get into that with Gabby in just a moment. I first just want to quickly thank our FCI Live champion sponsors for FCI Live 2025, National Co-op Grocers, Co-op, and Colluminate. We're so grateful to you all for making this series possible. So as I let Gabby get her slides organized and get comfy in the space, I just want to talk to you for a minute about what we're here to talk about today with Gabby. And Gabby brought this, well, she's going to tell her story, but it's a really important conversation about a lot of us who organize food co-ops say we want to get healthy food to our communities. And healthy is a very loaded word that means very different things to different people. Gabby's talked to dozens of co-ops across the country about this, cooperators all over the country. And she's going to get into the story of what this word means and how it impacts our communities and our food cooperatives. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Gabby. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, JQ. Um, so I'll stay. I'm trying not to be so long-winded, but I've told JQ to interrupt me once I become long-winded. And I'll see some other familiar faces, so y'all also are free. Alana, I see Brenda, a few more folks. So if I become long-winded, unmute and tell me, remind me that to keep it going. These are my housekeeping notes that are on all my slides of every presentation I do within the food co-op space and outside of it. The last one is the most important. There's nothing here I have to say that's more important than you taking care of you. Not a singular thing. Also, you get a recording of it. You get a copy of it, right? And so, don't hold it in for anyone. All right. These are the presentation goals. Again, these are the same presentation goals for all my presentations to remove barriers and create opportunities. In this space, it's remove barriers to people shopping or working at a co-op or serving an opportunity and create, or at a co-op or create opportunities for people to do as such who haven't done before because they didn't feel safe enough. Again, you can drop stuff in the chat if you have an accessibility issue and need to unmute. Like if you're unable to write in the chat, if you have ADHD like me, you have to get the question out because you can't go forward without it. Please feel free to unmute and say what you have to say. Otherwise, try to hold your questions as long as you can to the end. This is a community powered presentation. The reason I say that is, um, so I joined, really quick story, I joined NCG in 2022. Before that, I had no idea what a co-op was. I Googled it right before my interview. What the hell is a co-op? Like trying to figure out what that was. And I had sticky notes on my computer to remind me during my interview. Of course, they asked none of those questions that I was prepared for. But that means when I start working at the organization, I had to do my due diligence to find out what that meant. The first thing I did is I went to go meet somebody I kept hearing about that lived in my neighborhood or in my city, which was Malik Yakini. And I went to go chat with him, and I got a version of what it means to be a cooperative, and the most I'm aligned with. But in my work with NCG, I can't serve co-ops without knowing who they are. And so I asked for money to be sent to co-ops so I can learn more about co-ops. And so I picked a few across the country and it started like that. So I went to about 6 co-ops, and then I start being requested at co-ops to come do something. In one of my visits, I went to a co-op that was opening a store in a historically Black neighborhood. And I asked them, why would people shop here? And I was, again, I'm in learning. I wasn't being facetious like normal. So what would make people shop here? And they say, oh, because, we'll have healthy foods. And I said, that's so interesting because it's a grocery store across the street. And I bought a banana from there this morning and it was good. And it was organic by mistake. I didn't mean to grab the organic one, but, I grabbed it too lazy to go back and exchange it. And so I was like, well, it'll be organic. It'll be, lots of fruits and vegetables, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can see the grocery store from where I'm standing, the other grocery store that's been standing here serving Black and brown folks and elders. There's lots of elder folks walking in. It was very accessible. So why would they come here to shop? Like stop what they're doing here and come over here? And I struggled with that question because as I asked it, through my time, I heard something similar from other co-ops that I was providing services to. And so because of that, every time I went to a co-op, I asked about that. I asked people who work there. I asked people shopping there randomly. I asked people in other stores. I would visit other grocery stores when I was in a neighborhood or in a new city. And then, of course, I put it on social media to make it real. And that was in 2023. And I got a lot of responses. And every time I presented it, I've asked that question. And a lot of people either share openly or I get emails afterwards to share more stories. Right now, I'm up to over like 200 responses. All of those are not represented in this presentation. You're welcome. But this presentation is filled with lots of those stories. So it's wordy, and some of those stories are verbatim to honor the people who shared the stories. Okay. It's important to share those because I didn't get that. The same thing I got from, a couple co-ops that said we'll have healthy foods. It'll all be natural and organic, veganism, all those. I thought I would get more of that, but it's really only like 10 or 15% that shared things like that. A lot of people shared deep personal stories that I didn't realize matter in the same context, right? And so I hope you be open to that. But this presentation, again, or anytime you see me present in the food co-op space, it's not because NCG told me to, it's because the co-ops requested it. There's something, if it happens at 3 co-ops, it's happening at 30. 6 is 60. That's how I think. Okay. Okay, so the first thing to start with, here are two definitions. Healthy diet, eating to protect against malnutrition, does not talk about type of food at all. Does not mention what type of food, just to be clear. While nutritious diet talks about fruits, vegetables, grains, and milk products, which could be argued as healthy or not for some people, right? Now, the interesting thing about these, and it's different now, this has changed since uh, the end of January. If you look up these sites, when I was looking, I saw them switched a lot where the definition for healthy diet would be the same definition for nutritious diet and vice versa. So just keep this in mind as you're listening to stories today. This presentation is broken down into groups for sake of organization. So here's the first one. Have you ever heard of breast is best? Has anybody not heard of it? If you could put a hand up, and I'll have JQ let me know if somebody put a hand up. I like to see a few faces. Okay. Okay. For context, breast is best was a term made popular in the 80s. And then encourage that, children should be chest fed when they're born. I'm not here to argue that. It's also free if you have it. It's also free if you have it. So I do agree. That's great for a child to have milk from whoever gave birth, and that's great. So here we go. I had just come back to work at the co-op after having my baby. While I was working, I was reading the back of containers of formula so I could figure out what I could use for my baby. A customer came up to me and told me that I should be breastfeeding and how could I work here if I was feeding my baby that garbage. I think she may have said something to the manager on duty too. Later that day, one of my favorite coworkers said something similar. I had found out I had breast cancer while I was pregnant and I had a double mastectomy scheduled in 2 weeks. Right. And it's a reminder of these ideas that we have in our head, whether they were injected into our head or we believe these for ourselves. The bigger issue is, and you'll hear me say this several times, what happens if we minded our own business? How easy would that be? We just minded our own business and went about our way. It's important to me, and why I chose to was encouraged to present this in this space. Is because this is a lot of things that co-ops have to fix. It's different for co-ops that are becoming, has not opened yet to think about these different things. It's a lot easier to think about it in advance versus afterwards or reactively, if you will. And so, fed is best. It's the same terms when it comes to co-ops. We all go by cooperative values, but some co-ops might have different values in addition to the cooperative value, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm also not saying you should remove the word healthy from your end statement. Because a lot of people acting like, should I remove it? You shouldn't remove it, but you also shouldn't define it for people. Because it's really not your business what they put in their bodies. Unless you're paying for it. Maybe you get to decide if you're paying for their groceries. I don't think there's a co-op yet that's doing that for people. So, it's up to us that we have to create a space where people feel safer, not only to come in to work, but also come in and give us money so we can stay open, so. At this point, it's whatever I can use to feed my family of four. I'm the only one with income right now, and I never knew it would be so hard. I also need to buy food for my parents sometimes. I feel like the looks I once gave people shopping at grocery stores instead of buying food at the co-op are the same looks given to me when I stopped shopping at our co-op because I couldn't afford it, right? And this is a co-op employee. Of course, buying their own business, right? But things change over time. So the way I shop now, I'm 42 years old. I am married. We have no offspring, thankfully, on purpose. We're a child free on purpose. My responsibilities look a lot different from a lot of people my age who are married or in some type of relationship. And I can go and buy whatever the hell I want to from a store because of financial privilege in this at this point in my life. This would not have been true 10, 15 years ago. This might not have been true 5 years ago, right? And there was a moment in that time where that changed because now I have to provide things for a parent, right? And so we have these things, and adults, the humankind, specifically the adult flavor, are more judgmental than others, right? We all struggle with it, whether we say it out loud or not. And so it's something that we have to work to unlearn, even me, because even sometimes I'm in places I'm like, oh, why would you get that? Because I've decided what's good for me, and we low key or sometimes high key put our ideas on other people. Eating healthy is striking a balance between making me feel good and giving me energy while not missing out on the social and enjoyable aspects of food. And when I can afford to buy food that gives me that balance is a plus, but that plus is rare. Whatever is at the free food fridge and food pantry is healthy for me. And when this person shared, she also shared that they always told her, just ask your parents to help. Ask your parents to help you. Sometimes you gotta help your parents, right? Before my mom moved to nursing home, guess who's buying all her groceries? Me, right? There's sometimes a tax that comes along with being a child, and we might not be able to do the things that generations prior to us or people in different circumstances are able to do. This isn't a trick question, is it? Pink is where you won't share my name. I feel like I'm supposed to say natural and organic food since I work here. Really, it isn't healthy for me, even if I can't even afford the stuff in the store without my discount. Walmart is where I get my healthy food. Hell, that's where I get all my food. I will need to work there too in order to afford the food at my job and pay my other bills. It's not a secret that the food at co-ops might cost more than food at traditional grocery stores. And we're not saying that. But there are a lot of people that feel a certain type of way, employees, when they can't shop at the co-op. And sometimes there's the expectation that they do, although it's unsaid. So being mindful, like, yes, you might have employees, they might be really excited about the co-op, but some of them might shop there only because it's on their way home. And they rather just, spend some extra money to get this food there before they get on the bus. And some people might not shop there at all, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. This person is now working at Walmart, ironically, right? And when she, contacted me as an update, she had a lot of dissonance about that, right? And even more dissonance now since something happened at the end of the month in January, around companies rolling back and things like that. And so people have to give up a lot, but realistically, we all got to eat, regardless of where it comes from. And a calorie is better than no calorie at all. I thought that working at the co-op would help me with healthy eating and to lose weight. They always had good info on their IG page, and the people on there seemed nice. When I started working and began to ask questions about different fruits and veggies I had never heard of, they seemed annoyed. After a couple weeks, I stopped asking questions. I just do my job and go home. Healthy for me is being able to learn sometimes while I work. Now, this is the big one. I really enjoyed this because what she did was start referring all the customers that asked her questions to her boss. Her boss was also the person that was annoyed by her asking questions. Right. And so sometimes we're adding more work. Like we have to be open to others. I'll say for me, and I tell this story all the time, before I start working for co-ops, I never purchased anything organic because organic equated to cost for me. That was the only relationship, organic and cost. And I was at PCC. PCC is a group of markets. It's 15 markets in Seattle. They're co-ops. And I was there to do some type of education. And they offered me an apple in their offices. And I like Fuji apples. I would eat one every day if I could. And they gave me the apple, and I took a couple extra to put in my bag, of course, because I have a hard time passing up free. And when I bit into this apple, by far the best apple I've had in my life. I have never tasted a better apple. Now, at this point, I hadn't thought about the fact that I was in Washington State for apples. None of that, or that they were in season. None of that mattered. But I switched over from seeing organic in cost to organic in taste. And our values change based on the circumstance. So while I was in this space, I said before I can buy whatever I want from a grocery store, yes, but I still wasn't buying organic. So I'm not going to be, just because I can buy it, don't mean I will, right? But now, since then, I buy organic fruits and vegetables when available. I will opt, even though it costs a little bit of money. So certain things can just change your mind like that. And that's true for employees as well and other shoppers. Before I heard you speak at CCMA, I went into my co-op and purchased some sweet treats and some expensive items I normally wouldn't buy. One of my colleagues working that day saw what I was adding to my basket and stated, "You're making the big bucks now, huh?" I paused briefly and thought about putting some things back. When I got to the register, that same colleague was at another register and gasped loud enough for me to hear and shook his head when I pulled out an EBT card to pay for my purchases. Eating healthy is being able to splurge on treats for my family every once in a while. Sometimes people need a break from being poor. Imagine if we were minding our own business, right? And it's revenue coming into the store, you know. I think one of the things I see working with co-ops that are open, there's lots of conversation about the members. And that's great. Members are important. We need them, but we also need the members to shop. So shoppers are important, whether they members or not. What would it be like if we encourage other people, I guess, shop some more versus turning your nose up at people? You never know what somebody's circumstances is. And this is somebody in a leadership role at a co-op. I thought eating 3 meals a day was eating healthy until I realized that my GM never does. I used to ask him throughout the day if he's eating because he always seems to be in a rush to be doing something. Every time he responded, he told me he was too busy or that he didn't have time. In fact, I can't say I ever seen him eat anything, and he was there way more than I was. After a while, I started to feel like I wasn't doing my job well because I didn't feel as busy as he was. Internally, I began to compete with him and started doing extra things outside of my role because I believe being busy as him would ensure I remain employed. So far, all I've learned is that I also stopped eating, and that can't be healthy. This is super important for co-ops that are not open. JQ, and I'm sure there's other folks on here that have worked in a general manager or near general manager uh, role. By far, burned out is super high, and and even maybe Heather, you can speak to this. I know you work closely with co-ops too, but burnout is high. It's because general managers wear 19 different hats. The other thing that's important is that healthcare workers and retail have the highest number of UTIs, which is urinary tract infection, which come from not peeing, and you don't pee because you don't drink anything, right? And so it's important as you hire your general managers and leadership roles that you encourage, like, hey, did you take a break? When are you going using that vacation time? What you saving it up for? How can we empower you to feel empowered enough to leave and trust your employees? And my general manager at Detroit People's Food Co-op, I harass him all the time. I'm sure he is exhausted with me. I'm sure he's exhausted. But we're throwing a party when he go on vacation. Like, yes, get the hell out of here, because we want you to come back. Like that thing. So, as you think about that, if you're in a space where you're hiring a general manager, or you think about hiring a general manager, make sure, especially board members, encourage like, hey, you need to take a break because it's really hard to get another one after you lose one. And this was somebody up and coming from September 2023. Coming to work helps me eat healthy. Money is tight on a pretty regular basis. When I come to work, I'm guaranteed a meal, a good meal too. Did they tell you about the program here? They have this program that let us take food home on the days I work. Being able to eat at work every day and being allowed to take a meal home every day cuts off about $50 a week I must spend on food. Most months I save about $200, and it's really been a lifesaver for so many reasons. Honestly, it's one of the reasons I'm always open to working additional days. Now this is from PCC. I don't think I put that on there, but that's from PCC. Again, a whole different tax bracket than a lot of co-ops, right? But what that program is to help food insecurity. A lot of co-ops, which is good, they give away food at the end of the day. Ugly food that wasn't cute enough to go on the shelves, something that's about to expire, all of those things, and that's great. Like maybe those are out for the employees. Something is better than nothing. But with this idea, they worked into a budget at each store. Just a certain amount was spent to go buy things to put in employee break room. So it wasn't just the ugly stuff. It wasn't just things that are about to expire. But and it had to include produce in it. And at the same level, same type of produce that is sold in the stores. And so it was a small, small budget to help. And it was open to whoever needed it. So you could eat there, not from off the hot bar. So people like, we can't afford to people eat off the hot bar, but you could also, take something home, no questions asked. So it's just something to think about. It's very hard for co-op employees to pack up food to donate to pantries if they are hungry themselves. It's very difficult, and not just physically, mentally, it's really difficult to do that. My daughter was diagnosed with bone cancer 2 years ago at the age of 17. The initial chemo was very hard on her. She gained almost 80 pounds in a matter of months, which was a possibility that nobody had thought to share with her. Along with weight gain, almost the only food she could eat at the time was ice cream. Everything else either wouldn't stay down or would hurt her stomach. I observed people sneaking looks at her like there was a judgment because a heavy kid shouldn't be eating something fattening or that her parents shouldn't be giving her that type of food. Nobody said anything out loud, but it really upset me. She had a relapse in February and is unlikely to survive. She can thankfully eat a variety of foods again, so whether it's chicken breast, organic vegetables, fast food, ice cream, or anything else, I'll make it myself or go get it for her. I don't care. Food is and should be a joyful thing. My daughter deserves joy, and that is healthy for me. And it's a reminder that we don't know anybody's circumstances. My sister is 37. Ooh, means I'm getting old. But she had leukemia, excuse me, when she was 16. And she lived on chicken nuggets from McDonald's, fried okra from churches, just all this random stuff. I mean, for me, it's gross now, especially the okra. But and people will see her eating these things and had a lot of judgments, but we don't know what else is going on for somebody else. Right? Any questions before I go into physical wellness? Anything in the chat box, JQ?
Nothing in the chat box except, well, I mean, there's people's stories, people commenting on
Okay.
their experiences, but I feel like you wanted to save that for the end, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if
Good.
you do have stories you want to share to be put in the rotation, because I feel like this will be presented again, please share them with me via email. Okay. Okay. For almost a year, I was only able to keep down bean burritos from Taco Bell and bologna sandwiches on white bread. The thought of either of those make my stomach turn. Um, or make me want to sit in the bathroom immediately. But this is somebody and I have permission to share from Weaver's Way. Her name is Candy. Um, Candy is a beautiful black woman, is Muslim, has a special diet. Her skin is flawless. Look like she drew her skin on. I've never seen skin this beautiful before. And I was sharing with her about this project. And what was going on during this time is that Candy has lupus and she was pregnant and she was unable to keep weight on her. So she went to the doctor, you have to eat something to keep yourself and your baby alive because she was losing weight. And that's what she ate for 9 months. And it changed her perspective too, because she was the person like, hey, let's talk about this ingredient. Let's talk about white rice versus brown rice. In the co-op, and had been at the co-op 25 years. Right. And so did she go back to how she was eating before that? Absolutely. But she also minded her business more. Because you never know the circumstance of what somebody's going through. I was diagnosed with endometriosis last year. It was the first time the pain I've been dealing with all my life has been acknowledged as more than just a part of menstruation. I'm on meds now, but sometimes I'm so exhausted that all I can manage to make is a 35-cent ramen. Often it's the only thing I can process without making me feel worse. Before I spent my days immersed in discussions about organic and regeneratively grown foods, people in my life will go out of their way to tell me how bad and unhealthy those soup packs are for me if I mention that I eat them. I know there are similar options that are probably better for me, but the fact is that I've been eating these just about my entire life, and they're one of the few things that can bring me a measure of comfort when I'm feeling my worst. This is one of my coworkers who works directly with co-ops, helping them decide what they want in their sales, right? And this happens all the time. Sometimes, like food means something to us physically for nutrients, and sometimes it's nostalgia. Sometimes it reminds me of home. There are a lot of things I eat right now that is no way I would have eaten them before, but now they mean something different. Maybe you remember somebody cooking this that has passed on. We just don't know what it's tied to. And it don't have to be disease, right? But, when in doubt, minding our business usually works out, or asking the question. If it's taking, if it's taking a lot from you, you really need to like, oh, what made you make that choice? Or tell me about this recipe. Does it have a story to go with it? Ask. And be okay with being denied the answer, but still we shouldn't pass judgment. My mom is vegetarian and used to make these bomb ass black bean quesadillas. My stomach always turned after it, and she assumed I was lactose intolerant, so she started using less cheese. I kept having stomach issues and eventually got checked out. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and black beans were my kryptonite. I'm now on the FODMAP diet, which doesn't include my favorite beans or veggies. Right. So again, we just don't know what is happening with somebody else to make them eat a certain way or all of a sudden eat a certain way. I have severe iron deficiency and some other things going on. I was told by two different doctors that I needed to take my medication with a full glass of orange juice so it could absorb better. Two of my coworkers, and one was a board member, told me that I shouldn't be drinking orange juice because that's too much sugar and it's unhealthy. I stopped shopping there and stopped eating my lunch with people. Sometimes I skip eating while working altogether, which can also be damaging to the store because I know how I am when I'm hungry. Completely different person, right? The previous co-op worker. My mom said to always eat more fruits and veggies, more than anything else, because we had to be strong and healthy. And I did it too, all the way until I was 21. I was a vegetarian and talked some of my friends into trying it. When I was 21, I found out I had leukemia. My immune system was really low since I was getting chemo, and I had to be put on a neutropenic diet. Blew my entire idea of healthy food to pieces, and I realized I had been a judgmental prick to the people around me. So, a neutropenic diet does not encourage the eating of fresh fruits and vegetables. So in the land of co-ops, especially when we talk about natural organic, we always you talk about the pesticides and how they can harm crops and things like that. But for people on neutropenia, infections that could come from a bug being there or something like that, that is what's harmful to their system because they're immunosuppressed. When you're a neutropenic diet, you are encouraged to, if you eat fruits and vegetables, that they are deep fried so that you fry away, the opportunity for anything to seep in, but also because the type of chemo that they might be on, they lose weight at a higher rate. So you want to eat stuff that so you can have some calories on you, right? And this person is celebrating their 5th year as an omnivore. Any questions in the chat before we go forward, JQ?
No, just people are saying that some of this is really resonating with them and their experience.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm talking faster than I normally would because I want to get through all the stories. So my husband is in hospice. Before he got sick, we used to walk to the co-op weekly together and get all our fruits and veggies. Now that he's in hospice, I still walk to the co-op, but it's lonely. Today I went in and one of my regular cashiers said to me, "It looks like you're changing your diet, huh, Peggy?" For the first time ever, I had bought a sweet treat for myself since I was feeling so sad that day. Now these trips feel even lonelier. You'd be surprised how many people are open to telling you their business, right? And so this woman I met was across the street from a co-op at a cafe. I was walking by her, and what I was going to do was offer to buy her a treat, ironically. And I'm like, "Oh, you okay?" And she just started crying, and she told me all her business, right? But what stuck out to me is that it was a regular cashier, and this is not pointing the finger at the cashier because the cashier is a person, right? It was a regular cashier, and the cashier mentioned what she was buying, and not the fact that this was the first time she was in a co-op without her husband, right? And so again, we people go through all types of stuff. 2025 has been an interesting year for a lot of people, right? We just don't know what's going on. We don't want to trigger anybody, but more than that, we don't want to alienate anybody from the co-op either. Right? Eating healthy is eating at places and with people that don't encourage me to have alcohol. It was nice this year seeing other people request non-alcoholic drinks. It made me confident to order Sprite and socialize with other marketers. I heard you asking for a non-alcoholic ginger beer and telling the bartender you didn't drink. That was the first time I stopped twirling my 2 year sobriety coin while my hands were in my pocket. Eating healthy is eating food instead of depending on alcohol. And that was at a marketing conference. One of the things I look at when I go, and I guess this is, for co-ops that are not open specifically, one of the things that I look at when I go on co-ops to see if people have to walk through alcohol to get to something else, right? Do they have to go down this aisle to get to something else? And there was a co-op I was at in Philly. Was there in Philly? It was somewhere in Pennsylvania a while ago, and they were excited because they had just got their license to have, liquor and beer and all those things. They were showing it to me. I was with a group of people, and there was this coffee pot wedged in between. I said, "Tell me about this coffee pot." Like, well, yeah, people used to come in and use it all the time. And I'm like, what about now? He's like, not so much since we, moved everything around to get the aisle with wine and things like that. And he's like, why do you ask? I'm like, so on their door, like right outside of their door, there was a flyer for an AA meeting that was next door to the co-op. And so a lot of folks that are in AA or in recovery go get coffee first. And he's like, I never thought about that because that it was the time that people would come in and get coffee, but you can't do that. If you're in recovery, you can't go to the aisle of beer and wine and fill up your coffee cup. It's a little difficult to do things like that. And it seems, it might seem like something simple. And I don't think about it as something that co-op should already have thought of, but I work in therapy. I'm always thinking about addiction and how that works. But to be mindful, if you can, if you haven't finalized your plans, to try to make it so where there's multiple options to get to something else that might be at the end of that aisle or within that aisle. I lost my dad 19 days ago. He had just finished a bowl of his favorite ice cream and put the bowl in the sink. My dad never made it out the kitchen. He had a massive heart attack. One night, hopefully soon, I'll be able to sit down with that bowl of Neapolitan. When I'm able to do that, that will be my definition of eating healthy. Now, this is significant because this was 19 days and this person came to a conference. And so the way we think about work-life balance was grieving the whole time. The only session that he actually came to was my session. It was a 3-day conference. Spent all this other time sitting in his room grieving. Right. And so what are we telling, again, this was a person in leadership. What are we telling our leadership about our expectations? Right. Was it helpful for him to be at the conference because he couldn't take anything back to the co-op because he didn't go to any sessions because he was grieving? Right. So thinking outside the box when it comes to work-life balance, especially for our leaders in the co-op space. I'm in recovery from an eating disorder, and at one point, my main source of food was frozen bone broth. I used to freeze it because sometimes I just wanted to actually chew something. It's been 10 years since I withheld food from myself, and I view eating healthy as eating foods that don't make you feel like crap or think about hurting yourselves. Right. And that was a colleague of mine. My parents had moved in, so my dad could have help taking care of my mom. She has end-stage dementia, and we were told she maybe had a little over a month to live. My house is strictly natural and organic. My family only eats fish and veggies, and my youngest has never had fast food. Every once in a while, my mom would repeatedly ask for McDonald's, specifically a Big Mac. My dad said their first date was at McDonald's and that he would love to share that meal with his wife. I told him no and explained how bad that stuff was. I laid in bed that night and put myself in his shoes. The next day, my wife set up a date night for them and I served them Big Mac meals. Eating healthy is making sure my parents were happy, even if it was just for one more night. My dad still talks about that date and my mom hasn't been gone for 2 years. Right? When this person shared this with me, I was just in shock that he was able to tell his parents no. I'm like, I have not experienced that without fear. I have not been able to tell him no, like you can't eat that without fear before. But again, like it doesn't matter, different circumstances happen in your life. It does not have to impact somebody else's experience, right? I think, it put myself we just moved my mother into a nursing home and last December. And when I think about my mom in this space, and I would struggle more with buying it from McDonald's than actually giving her the food. Right? I'm like, oh, McDonald's is on the list. Can't do that. Like, let's talk about hamburger. Any other thing that y'all shared that you want to try? But it couldn't be a no. It couldn't be a no. So what would it like if we put something to the side briefly to take care of people in our life? And this was somebody at a conference in 2024. Can I tell you my response? I heard you give this presentation before, and I wanted to share too. Honestly, eating alone or only with people I trust is eating healthy for me. I used to get teased when I ate lunch in the cafeteria because all I had was water, a bologna sandwich, and a piece of fruit. My grandma couldn't afford those cool Lunchables, juice boxes, or Doritos like everyone else. They would stare, point, and giggle. I eventually just waited until I got home from school to eat. It still impacts me, and I'm in my 40s. I'm happy there are spaces besides the big room to eat in while I've been here. I had originally planned to go back to my hotel. They've been helpful, and having those spaces energized me enough to eat in the big room this morning, and no one stared. So this goes back to how food and other people can impact us more than just physically. If you asked me a few months back, I would have went on a tangent about eating natural and organic. Today I can say that it will for sure be whatever I can physically get to. I broke my right ankle and can no longer drive. I can only get to places without stairs or close enough to be able to hobble to on my crutches. The day I broke my ankle, I missed the board meeting, and the board was more upset about not being able to vote on something, and not one of them asked what happened to me to cause my absence. They felt awful later and came to visit me. They gave me a good talking to when they got to my home and saw all the groceries I had from the store less than a block from my house. which was not our co-op. They were jerks to me, and I had realized I was a jerk too before this experience. As a board member who resigned after that. I was doing some work at a with a board in the Northeast. Yeah, Northeast. And the board members were made up of mostly wealthy people. And there was one person on there in poverty. And I knew she was in poverty because she made sure she reminded folks, which I was a fan because they were uncomfortable every time she brought it up, right? And, we were going through this meeting, and one person that had been wealthy is now, retired and is on a single income. And she blurted out during this meeting, the timing was perfect too. She was like, I don't shop at the co-op for everything anymore. And it was like all these wealthy people that she was once a part of, like grabbed their pearls, like, like, like what? I can't afford it. I'll shop at the store down the street. I get stuff in here, and I don't care if anybody else shops here, but I can't get all my groceries from here. And the board was in shock. But then we had this conversation about how things change over time, and you might not always be able to come here every week and spend $200, right, on organic jackfruit. You just know, things change over time, right? And it's important for a board too. I think one of the times I gave this presentation, I was at a board, and there was half the board wanted to get a WIC, the other half didn't, and the one half of the board said, "Well, I don't want that type of food in our store," which translates to I don't want those type of people in the store, right? And so going back and forth about this, I'm like, well, we have to have a conversation about, have you always shopped here? Let's talk about that. Where was you shopping at 20 years ago? Where did you shop at when you was five, when you had 5 kids and you're a single parent? It's nothing wrong with that. Like if you are standing on, I only want to have natural and organic, just say that. You don't have to say, don't say everyone is welcome. That's not true. But, stand on whatever you believe and don't try to make the community think anything else, right? There are other options for WIG. Any questions in the chat, JQ?
Nope, just more affirmations of experience really resonating for
Okay,
folks.
thank you. Okay, identity. Now I like coming here for my healthy food. Some of the people working here wear pronoun pins. There aren't many places I can go to shop for anything where my gender is affirmed, and having someone use my pronouns correctly feels good. I even tried some new things in the cafe and bought food I normally wouldn't simply because I stayed in the store longer. I guess I'm deciding what healthy is all over again. Being seen for me is my new healthy. This is a 31-year-old trans woman. The thing I want to point out here, she said that she bought things she normally wouldn't buy. Co-ops can be a gateway to new foods. And let me say that co-ops can be a gateway from conventional food to natural and organic. So I'm gonna use WIC just because I've said it many times. I'm really passionate about WIC because my family benefited from it. Let's say you go in, you have WIC at your store. WIC is a short-term program. It's only for 5 years till the kid is 5, unless that's changed because of whatever happened in January. So it's a short-term program. That means you have 5 years to create a space for a co-op member. You have 5 years. Eventually, after you come in the co-op and you grab that Cheerios, you're going to grab Kashi because you looked at it for so damn long. You're interested in like, what's this? And now you have a new thing. This just happened not too long ago. I love Raisin Bran. Even though it was weird, I was the only kid choosing Raisin Bran over Captain Crunch when I was a lot younger. Big Raisin Bran girly. When I went to get my groceries at my co-op at Detroit Peoples, next to it was the field day version of Raisin Bran, and it was $2 cheaper. And I love a sale. And so I got that. Like, oh, I didn't have to think about it at all. I'm like, wait, that's $3.99. That's $5.99. I'm gonna go $3.99. By far, and it was fine. It was great. Now I eat field day. It's a big deal. But I only got that because I was intrigued by the price. The brand no longer meant anything to me because the price drew me in. Right. Even now, this was, the past couple months is the first time I've been able to get all my groceries at the co-op. Not because they weren't affordable, because they just weren't in the store. Right. And it felt really good to go in there and buy the things I needed or switch and buy something else just because the co-op didn't have it, although I could have went to another store. Because I find value in going to that co-op because the people cool, the food, the hot bar is so good. Like give me a reason to come in. But one thing can change your mind. So thinking about that, like people are coming in and trying new things just because they feel safer in the store. Just because the music is good, just because it smells good, just because they like the pictures. It's not all about the groceries they have or what farms they came from. Those are important too. But it could be anything, and it's not up to us to decide what that anything is. In the 50s and 60s, actually having food to eat would have been my answer. Now it's having food I can make independently. This one is important to me because this is my mother. She is 72 actually, and my mother is blind, and she went blind, right? In Black culture, there is certain people who can make certain things for events. That did not change for my mother once she lost her vision. She still had to make those certain things. She had to make it a different way. This means she might need things that are pre-prepared. That means I might have to go to the store and get an onion that's already cut up. No, her kids can't cut up an onion, right? But the stranger at the store can, right? And so that meant I go get the container of onions, and it might be in a plastic container. We talk about plastic a lot in the world of co-ops, and I think plastic is awful. And I think there are a lot of alternatives to plastic. But I'm not going to choose my belief system around plastics over somebody else's nutrition. So it doesn't mean you have to have these things cut up in plastic, but it does mean that you need to create a space where somebody can feel safe enough to go up to the person in produce like, hey, can you cut this up for me? And maybe that'll go in a box or go in plastic. But we have to think of other ways to make sure we support our disabled folks, or we are able to ourselves. Right? There's another person, Dr. Whitney West, and I don't think I have her story in here, but she is a person. She's presented at a lot of the NCG conferences. I met her on LinkedIn. I had been fangirling for years, and then had the opportunity to see her on stage. But she is a person who uses oxygen 100% of the time, and she has rheumatoid arthritis, so she physically can't cut up things. Things have to be cut up for her. She's also a fat person, right? And so you already have these thoughts because a lot of adults are fat phobic, right, around fat people and how they should eat. But then you take away what they need in order to eat the things that you think they should eat, right? So we can't say like, oh, you should eat more fruits and vegetables, but she can't go to the store and get those fruits and vegetables cut up so she can't eat them because she can't cut them. Right. And so it doesn't mean that you have to chop all your veggies and all these things up and have them in plastic containers, but it does mean we need to figure out a system where people feel safe enough to ask for help. Because I'm sure there's somebody in there with a knife that can cut up the fruits and vegetables, can cut the chicken into cubes or whatever the case may be, so people can feel safer coming to the store and getting the things they need. Eating any food that isn't garbage. And I mean that literally because I was homeless for a year and I've eaten food out the garbage. I remember going to places, including some of your little grocery stores. I told them I worked for co-ops, and they all became my little grocery stores. And asking for work or for food. So many of them turned their noses up at me and even called me names, including junkie. They say they want people to eat healthy, but really they just wanted me out of their store. I didn't even look bad or smell bad. The man at this one gas station would give me fruit every morning. He was so nice. His wife ended up hiring me. Healthy eating is eating food that nourishes my spirit and my body. And he makes me say he has never used any substances. That was my agreement with him if I used his story. All right. Believe it or not, it's avoiding all those leafy greens that people be talking about. I have a weird kidney condition, and so does a lot of my relatives. It's so bad that I got a transplant last year. Everybody keeps telling us what we need to eat and have no idea what would happen to us if we did. Now I get all my vitamin K from a pill. I kind of miss the taste of some of that stuff, but I don't miss it as much as I would miss my only kidney if I decided to eat it. Co-ops love pushing kale too. Oh, they love a good kale story. I always teach them about kale wraps in the cooking classes. It's a reminder when I do cooking classes. Kale is great, but let's teach about something else too. And culture. Any questions before I go to culture? This is the last group.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Eating white rice. I don't care what anyone sells. Brown rice just ain't it. Or that quinoa dust or whatever that is. Eating white rice is a part of my culture, and everyone in my family is alive and well. I just want to eat my white rice and peas in peace. It is nutritious. If people don't like it, why can't they just not eat it and shut up? I also love some rice and peas too. And this is somebody I was talking about social media when I asked the question. Those my therapy times in Jamaica, right? I know what it's not. It's not that bland food that steals your joy. Food is fuel, but damn, can they start teaching about seasoning the same way they're teaching everyone about the 74 types of kale? It can taste good even if you don't use salt. Eating healthy is eating what is best for my body, but with flavor. For me, that's no processed food and eating every 2 hours. My stuff be seasoned too. I don't use any salt though. I can't do gluten either. I usually bring my own food when I'm traveling for work because all the gluten-free stuff tastes like cardboard with a dash of salt. Right? So food means a lot of things to a lot of people. And this is a person who has lost 100 pounds off and kept it off. During COVID, eating healthy meant being able to buy food from the grocery store. I'm Chinese, and because the president at the time blamed COVID on us, the stares and whispers about us were so scary and crippling to me and my family. We started only buying things from Asian markets, but they also were harmed for the same reasons. I found my diet consisting of predominantly food purchased at gas stations and food offered at farmers markets and festivals. While I go to grocery stores now, I remember the people who stared. Eating healthy means being able to buy groceries where I want without feeling afraid. This person, the reason I put what this person was wearing is because they were still in hiding in a way. They were still, very afraid. I don't know why they chose to tell me all their business, but people are willing to share these things if you ask for consent, like, hey, can I ask the question, and go from it from there. But this is important. They do remember, and this person was a shopper at a co-op prior to this, those feelings. So something might have happened or started a long time ago, but can still have impacts, throughout your life and impact what you buy and where you buy it from. Eating healthy for me means being able to eat in this cafe and not being asked what farm I'm from and what produce is mine. Not all Mexicans are farmers. In fact, I don't personally know any farmers, but I did always want to be one. I work in corporate America in a space where it is assumed that I am in my position due to luck. I was born here, went to school, and worked hard. Mexican folks aren't monolithic, and I don't need to be put in a box while I'm eating, while I'm shopping or eating. Eating healthy for me is eating my food in peace while I'm being my type of Mexican. Now share my enchiladas with me. And this was a stranger. This was a stranger I met in the co-op. I did share enchiladas because they looked good. They were phenomenal. But this person doesn't shop at the co-op. But his coworkers got on his nerves so bad he would take his food over there. So yeah, he promised me at the end of this conversation that he would buy something. I'm like, just try it out, see how you like it. You like the cafe. But you just never know. Like, you never know. We have to be open and we have to mind our own business at the same time. The other thing, Google is free. It's been free for a long time. I think Bing is free. I think Yahoo search is free. It's a lot of things that we can find for free, like questions we have and curiosities we have that are unrelated to anything else. If you're curious just because you want to know, see if Google has it first. See if somebody else can tell you first. If there isn't, if your co-op is serving a community and you don't know anybody from that community, that's a red flag first. Because how come you don't? If you have a co-op in that space, you're about to open a space like that. You can also hire people from that community. It doesn't have to be somebody that has all these reviews or runs a consulting company about Black people and what they eat. It could be somebody from that community. You can pay them because you're going to extract emotional labor either way. Right? You can pay to do that. And so I put this in here mostly because I love James Baldwin. But co-ops has a history of being exclusive. We know that, most, the whitewashed version of co-ops, everything was exclusive, members only. I think right now there's only one, and folks on this call that's in the co-op space, I think there's only one co-op right now that's member only that I know of, a food co-op that I know of in New York. But it's important that we can change the idea. People come in like, oh, this is not for me. I'm not a member, or they don't have the food I like, or the food I eat, or the food that's a part of my culture. We have the opportunity to change that if we are a co-op that's open, and we have an opportunity to mitigate that if we are not open. Somebody's always going to feel like this is not for me. You only can do so much, can't please everybody, but you can do a lot better than what we've done historically. These are the co-op principles. The eighth one, diversity, equity, inclusion, has not been officially added yet, but many co-ops has taken it on as they should. But I think there should be an additional group of principles. And these are not written anywhere besides this presentation because I created these, but we are open-minded to the nutritional needs of others. We acknowledge our bias because we all have it. We participate in interpersonal work, and that's the work that we do on our own before we include anybody else. We continue to unlearn and relearn. We encourage member autonomy in their purchasing. We provide education when requested about foods, and we mind our own business about what people choose to eat. One more story. This is a hard question since I'm still learning what that means for my body and soul. Growing up, my mom made us eat all the food on our plates before we could get up from the table. I thought she was a tyrant. Often we were able to get more things at a reduced price due to it being close to the expiration date. It wasn't until I got older that I found out that she did that if she was unsure of when we would have another meal. That's taken me years to realize I didn't need to eat to finish all my food and even more years to understand that I don't need that amount of food on my plate to begin with. She did the best with what she had. And that is me. That is my mom. I guess my dad too, but he didn't cook. And so, you know, everyone is welcome is ingrained into a lot of the co-ops, probably painted on the wall. There's a sculpture erected in front of it. And this came around when there was a shift from, co-ops being member only to being open to everyone. But this was also co-opted. Everyone is welcome really meant everyone's money is welcome. Because now everybody's money can be spent at the co-op, right? But since we've co-opted it, it's up to us to make it true, or at least try to make it true. So while it's okay for you to paint these things, and it's fine, and it can be true. It is imperative that we switch into the mindset that we created this with you in mind. And this is true for co-ops that are already open. There are things we can do to create other space or more space for other folks to come in and be seen as well. That top one is my NCG address. If you have questions related to my role at NCG, or that I can help you with. But if it's something unrelated, you can find me at the one on the bottom. Or if it's about Detroit People's Food Co-op, I'm the treasurer. I can answer those questions too.
Well, we first had the first question we had, I knew we were going to have it is, would you be comfortable sharing a PDF of these slides that I could send to all attendees?
Yes, we can share a PDF. This is the caveat. So I have permission. I have consent is really important to me. How do I don't know what this happened.
That's okay, I can take care of it.
Okay. Um, I have consent from everybody who's provided a story here for them to be shared, but not presented. So you have permission to share them, but you can't present them like in this fashion. Like, let me put this up on the screen. Let me tell you about this meeting I went to. Can't do that. So yeah.
Okay. I will make that note when I send out the PDF as well. All right. Do you folks have specific questions or comments they want to share with Gabby?
It's your time.
Everybody's just saying how awesome it is. Oh, we got a hand. All right, Drew.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for those testimonials. I was just curious, like, do you have any thoughts about training for board members, staff, or member events that can help bring this conversation to light and offer space where people can like hear from each other, like you have heard these testimonials?
Yeah. So well, for me, I know I've presented this at annual meetings. You do it very strategically. I think so, the people have asked me whether that's a general manager or somebody from the board doing it strategically to bring that conversation in because it involved bringing members in, right? And the other thing they've done, if it's not the annual meeting, you can put it on as a to talk about these things as a community event. And when I say community event, like adding other people that are not members of the co-op to it, because now everybody's forced to talk about it and they'll bring it back to the co-op. But talking about it out loud, you can share some of these stories, and then start collecting other people's stories when they share them if they feel empowered to share them. Is a way because everybody has one mind, right? And although we should be collectivists in our thinking, like thinking about how things impact other, most of us are not. We think about ourselves first, whether we say it out loud or not. Then we think about the way others are impacted. So I would start collecting them, maybe specific to your community, and sharing them out. But I would absolutely use a member meeting, a community meeting to bring it up. It could be a topic at a board meeting, like let's talk about our biases around healthy food, right? Don't share this until after you had that conversation. Like I wouldn't share this recording with them until after you had a conversation. Because this is up on YouTube, right, JQ?
Yes, this will be free and
Yeah.
available on YouTube. I want to say we got time for one, or we got to when they have their hand up, and we have time for one more
Mhm.
question. We're going to wrap up at the top of the hour as we always do, and Gabby has agreed to stay though once we stop recording and talk a little longer. I want anyone who does unmute now and shares to be aware that you're going to be part of the recording. So if you have something you want to share or say that you don't want to be part of the recording, you can join us afterwards in just a minute or two. With that, we have a hand up from Reggae Roots Farm.
Hi. I do food rescue work. I have a mutual aid little free pantry in front of my building. I live in an inner city neighborhood. And there's this impression, it's a food desert here. There's this impression that people don't want fruits and vegetables and they're not into quote unquote healthy foods and this and that. And I literally have like 40 people standing outside of my building at 9 o'clock in the morning so that they could get rescued food coming from Whole Foods and from Trader Joe's. So I basically wanted to know, do most co-ops participate in food rescue? I know you were saying that sometimes, the employees get to, take food home at the end of the day. And I'm just
Mhm.
wondering if a lot of if you find a lot of co-ops participate in food rescue.
Yeah, most of them actually. And if there are, co-ops here, I'm sure most of them participate in either giving it to a food pantry, all those type of programs. Yeah, I don't know a co-op who doesn't actually.
Okay, great.
I'm a part of Detroit People's Food Co-op, and we just opened in May, and we have people that we give food to as well, right? So I think both are important. Yeah, thanks for bringing that in.
Yeah, because I just started working with the group that's trying to form a co-op. We had our first meeting last week.
Mhm.
So that was something that I wanted to, at our next meeting, I want to bring that up and talk about that possibility. So I want to see what other co-ops are doing. Thank you.
Yeah, all of them. I don't know anyone that's not doing them.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
great.
agree.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us would be happy to share stories about how we do it too once you guys get there. For a quick, we're gonna do our wrap up. So this is our wrap up portion. Again, Gabby has agreed to stay a little bit after the end of the video, so please feel free to stay and continue to be part of the conversation. But first off, can we please thank Gabby for sharing this incredible presentation with us and the power of it? You can see why I was so excited, why so many of us were so excited that this was going to be part of FCI Live. Thank you so much to Gabby. I'm just going to remind you, you just got an email from us within the last couple minutes. It is a 2-minute survey. It is very brief, but when you fill it out, it gives both, we're going to share that feedback with Gabby anonymously, and it also gives us feedback to use to honestly keep this series free through letting our sponsors and our grantors know that we are accomplishing for the startup food co community what they want accomplished. So if you can take those 2 minutes to fill it out, it's a great way to thank us and Gabby for our work. So really appreciate that. Coming up
Thanks for
next,
coming, folks.
sorry, what?
No, I was just saying thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Um, Tonight we've got one more session, expanding your fundraising reach with Co-op Development Fund, and this is specifically, the title doesn't give it away, about how startup food co-ops and nonprofits can work together to get grants and donations to meet a mutual mission and let that money be part of developing your food co-op. And they're going to talk about how you can do that. And then tomorrow we go back to tools of feasibility. This is a part two. We had an introduction to feasibility last week, and there were so many requests to go a little more in depth on feasibility. So this is kind of a part two. You need to know a little bit about the basic framework of feasibility, and the 4 parts of feasibility. Probably get the most out of this session. But we're at 8 more sessions this week between now and Thursday. They're all free and you can find them on our website. And again, thank you to our sponsors. We had a record number this year of organizations. All these organizations believe in startup food co-ops and the startup food co-op movement, and we thank them so much for making this series possible. And with that,